Well, the current surge is hitting children particularly hard.
Yeah, across the country, the number of kids hospitalized has quadrupled in just the last month.
Now, here in Michigan, 96 children are hospitalized with COVID-19. That's more than at any point since the start of the pandemic.
And 7 Action News reporter Alex Bazarjian is joining us live right outside DMC Children's with what local doctors are now saying about this frightening trend. Alex.
Alicia, what they're saying is we're seeing the consequences of the Omicron variant. Now, we know from data that Omicron is 3 times as infectious as Delta. And while kids usually don't get super sick from COVID-19, if they have a compromised immune system, this kind of infection could be deadly.
I think that we as a society have let our guard down a bit.
Dr. Rudolph Valenti with the Detroit Medical Center says COVID-fatigued Americans are letting up on a battle that isn't over. Nearly 500,000 new infections are being reported in the U.S. every day, but the number of kids getting sick has doctors sounding the alarm.
Hospitalizations are 2 to 3-fold higher than they've ever been.
325,000 kids tested positive for COVID last week. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, that's a 64% jump in infections compared to the previous week. Here in Michigan, 96 children with COVID were sick enough to be admitted to the hospital. But to put the data in perspective, only 2% of pediatric COVID cases require that level of medical intervention.
Again, most children are not going to need to come into the hospital, but there are kids who have chronic lung disease, people with asthma, people with cystic fibrosis, lots of different medical conditions that make them a little more fragile. So when you add a COVID infection on top of their medical problems, they wind up coming into the hospital.
Data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention shows about 1,045 children under 18 have died from COVID-19. It is an unlikely scenario, but Valenti says parents should always err on the side of caution.
Vaccinate all those around the children who are eligible to be vaccinated. Nowadays, if you're 5 and up, you can be vaccinated. So those that are under 5, they're vulnerable. You have to protect them.
Well, Valenti says along with vaccines, other safety measures like masking will keep kids from getting sick. But he says on top of that, it'll also keep kids in the classroom. So it's important to err on the side of caution, keep kids masking, and if they do feel sick, to make sure they stay home. In Detroit, I'm Alex Bazarjian, 7 Action News.
And when you see these numbers rising so dramatically, these number of hospitalizations, it is so alarming. So yes, if they're sick, please keep them home unless they're severely sick. Thank you, Alex.